Hello and welcome along to another video. It's the 22nd of January, so it's about time I started thinking about planting out some early seeds. Now today what I'm going to do, I'm going to plant out some broad bean Aquadulce Claudia, which I've never grown before, so we'll interesting to see how those come on. I'll also be planting some sweet pea seeds, which I collected from last year's sweet peas in October. So a quick run through of the seeds that I'm going to be planting today. First of all, we've got some rocket, and I should be planting those into my standard half tray, green half trays. Also got some parsley. Now, as far as I'm concerned, you can never have too much parsley on the go at any one time. And we've got salad leaves, bright and spicy. Also got salad leaves, crispy blend, that one as well. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. The seeds will be going into my standard green half trays, and the beans, the Aquadulce and the sweet peas, will be planted into these root trainers. Now the good thing about root trainers, particularly for beans, now we're talking about runner beans, French climbing beans, French beans, broad beans, peas, any sort of peas, they will all benefit from being planted into one of these root trainers because of the depth of the container. Now by the time that they've germinated and are ready to plant out onto the allotment, hopefully, and fingers crossed, they will have filled these trainers full of roots. So that's what we're after, and that's what we're sort of aiming for prior to planting out. And one of the advantages of planting them out this early in the season is that each of these trainers, there's 4 little cells in each one, so there's 32 cells in total. And what I'm going to do with the sweet peas, I'm going to drop 2 sweet peas into each cell, so there'll be 64 plants, fingers crossed. And if for any reason at all that they don't germinate, or they just sort of lay dormant or something like that, you've then got time to sort of go back and fill the gaps, as it were. So that's why I like to plant beans and peas into those root trainers this early in the year. Now all the other seeds that I'm planting, the lettuce, the parsley, the rocket, and I mean there are so many others that you can plant at this time of year. Now every single one of these can be planted throughout the year, provided that you put them inside on a windowsill or in a greenhouse. Now I've got a propagator and it's set at 18 degrees, so that works just fine for all these seeds. So we're now ready to start planting the rocket, same as before, same as the lettuce, into the half tray. Actually doing with all these smaller plants and seeds is I'm actually planting them into these half trays, so that once they've germinated they can then be pricked out into small plugs and then just grown on again for another couple of weeks, 3 weeks I suppose, and then planted straight out onto the allotment as small plug plants. There we go. So I'll just continue on then and plant the rest of these small seeds into these half trays. Now what I'm going to do now is actually plant out some of the broad beans again into the half tray. Now what I'm going to do with the dibber is to just go down about 1.5 inches. Now this time with the beans, I'm just going to plant one bean in each cell. I'm going to plant them slightly on their sides. Now when we were kids at school, part of our science lesson, and we used to do it, I think before we would go on to a half-term break. So the lesson was bring in a large jam jar, and then they would get a little piece of blotting paper and put it on the inside of the jam jar and wet it, and you could see the water sort of soaking up through the blotting paper. And then we would get a seed, and it could be a pea or a bean. Now we used broad beans, and we just shoved the bean up against the glass of the jam jar and the blotting paper, so that the seed came into contact with a little bit of water against the blotting paper. And then we went off on our half-term or whichever holiday it was and came back, and then the lesson then was the roots would go down and the shoots would come up, and then that was our lesson for science. And I was absolutely fascinated from that day with how seeds grew. And in this particular little experiment that we used to do at school was you could actually see them growing, and the roots would go down and get into the water, and then the shoots would come up, which was really interesting. Anyway, back to the beans. So all I'm doing now is with the dibber is just moving some of the compost so that they're covered, and I suppose they're probably an inch or so down. Just give them an extra little push down. So what we're trying to aim for here is to get the seeds round about 2 inches below the surface of the compost. Now if you were to plant them outside on your allotment, that's the sort of distance or the depth that you would be planting your seeds to. So we'll just give them a little push down to about 2 inches. Right, so the beans are all planted. I shall give that a really good water because there's quite a lot of compost in there, so they'll need a really good water, and then I'll put those into the greenhouse, and hopefully they should germinate okay. With regards to my story about the beans whilst at school, let me know in the comments below whether or not you did something similar, and if you did something different, well then put those in the comments as well. I'd be really interested to know how we got into gardening as kids at school. We also at my secondary school, we had a garden. We had a greenhouse and a huge big garden, and we used to grow vegetables. The vegetables used to go into the kitchen. Now we all had school dinners in those days, so I don't suppose for a minute that the small patch of garden that we used to tend in our lessons went anywhere near to being able to to cater for all the vegetables that used to go in there. So we used to grow an awful lot of potatoes, and I can remember those lessons at school and being really interested in those days. So if you had a garden at your school, let me know in the comments below, and if you used to have gardening lessons like I did, also let me know in the comments below. So that's it then for the seeds. They're all in the propagator, all except the broad bean. I'll just put those under the propagator on the bench below. Now the sweet peas need a temperature range of between 16 and 20 degrees to germinate. Now this propagator is set at 18 degrees, and that's worked very well in the past, so I don't see any reason why it shouldn't work again for them this year. So plenty of sweet peas and plenty of other seeds. So earlier in the week I braved the wind and the rain and went over to my allotment and planted out some garlic. There were two varieties. One was called Garcua, which is a strong flavoured soft-neck variety, and they produce smaller, milder flavoured bulbs, which is more suited to warmer areas. Now the second one was a variety called Eden Rose, which is a French style garlic and has a strong flavour and is a hardneck variety. Now this garlic produces a stiff central stem with larger bulbs and is more suited to colder northern areas. So I've got one of each type, so we'll just see how they get on. Now the bed I'm planting them in was my new raised bed, which I built a few weeks ago in front of my shed, which has a good layer of compost and well rotted horse manure added into it. So I'm hopeful for some really good garlic later in the year. Here I'm planting the garlic cloves 1 inch deep and about 3 to 4 inches apart. While I was over on the allotment, I also picked the last of my beetroot, a variety called Detroit Golden Globe, which were planted out quite late last year, so they haven't produced very many large bulbs. A bit fiddly to cook and peel, but very nice all the same. So that's it then for this video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that notification bell if you'd like to know when the next video comes out. I'll see you in the next one.